Welcome back to the On the Ball podcast, another episode of the best potty going around. And look, I can't lie, I'm absolutely pumped. Pumped for all the potties as always, but this one's a little bit extra special today. We're joined by a special guest. We'll save his introduction for last, but Pilch, welcome back, mate. Regular of the potty, back for another NFL chat this week. But how are you going?
Thank you, mate, and going well.
Good to hear. Good to hear. It's a good day today, so I reckon the spirits will be high. But the special guest today, Curtis, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. Excited to be on, mate. I'm actually keen for it, to be fair.
Yeah, we've got a stacked episode lined up. Haven't had Curtis on for ages. Can't even recall the last one. It's probably like halfway through last NFL season, I reckon. It's probably since last November.
Yeah.
So pretty telly that he's here. But yeah, we're bringing back some of the old favourite segments this season. First of all, we'll be doing winners and losers. So we'll be taking a look back at week one, and then we'll be chatting about fantasy, and then we'll be previewing week two. That's sort of just the general gist. But as we go through the segments, you'll sort of understand what's happening. But first of all, winners, boys. We've all brought about 2 to 3 to the table. I'll let Curtis have a crack first, since he is the special guest of the show. Who were your biggest winners of the week, mate?
First one I'll start off is Cleveland. I thought their performance against Kansas City was really impressive. And to be fair, if they probably didn't, they kind of I wouldn't say they slacked off in that second half. Mahomes kind of turned it on in the second half, but they had a few errors in the second half that you wouldn't usually expect. Like a fumble from Chubb. But otherwise, yeah, I thought that performance was extremely impressive. They were really innovative in terms of their play calls, especially in that first half. So yeah, I think they're a serious threat this year in the AFC. The second one I had was the Chargers against Washington. It wasn't a big win, and obviously Fitz got injured early, but I thought it was a really important win for them. Last year they had 5 games that they lost by under 5 points, so for them to get a close win here was extremely important and kind of sets a precedence for the rest of the season to win those close games, which would have otherwise got them into the playoffs last year. And final win I had was the Raiders. Big win against Bolt. They usually lose those close games, especially over the last few years. So the fact that they got up in OT is a big win for them, and yeah, makes them on my winners list for the week.
Yeah, 100% agree. I reckon the Chargers thing might have had the coaching change might have played a part, because we know that Anthony Lynn shirked a few games last year. So yeah, hopefully that's a sign of things to come for the Chargers. But yeah, the Raiders game, that was a weird one. People were saying it was like game of the year, but at the same time, it was like kind of a shit game. I don't know. It was a weird one. Pilch, who were your winners, mate?
Brought 2 to the table, mate. Firstly, Arizona. Did not expect this at all. Expected 10 to win this game, and Cardinals came out, blew them out of the water. O looked elite, D looked elite. So huge winners there. And my other one was the Rams. Stafford just looked elite for them, and I reckon for me they're probably my number 3 seed behind Tampa and Chiefs.
Yeah, they looked so good, and like that Bears defense is nothing to scoff at, and Stafford was cutting them apart, and then Hendo just took over in the second half and started running it down their throat. So yeah, that was pretty impressive. But yeah, Arizona looked sick. I predicted on the predictions last week, I predicted Tennessee to regress a little bit. So I know it's early days, but I was happy to see that one. I know our mate Quino. Thanks, brother. Quino, some of my other shouts weren't great, but yeah, Quinos, our mate, sent through a multi Sunday night, and that was one of the legs. And I think we all told him to not send it in. Maybe not purely because of that leg.
Worst multi.
Yeah, he had about, for those listening, he had about 4 legs. 3 of them were like 50-50, 60-40 at best. So yeah, it was a bit of a cooker, but he probably wanted some value, I guess. My winners, I've actually bought 3 completely different winners, so we're pretty much covering all the teams here in the NFL. But Brought the Saints forward. I think their win over the Packers was outrageous. I don't think that differently of the Packers coming out of it. I think more highly of the Saints. So I think last week I said might just get the last wild card or miss the playoffs. I can't remember. I had them around like 9 or 10 wins, but I think Sean Payton showed that like he's genuinely has a, like you could say he's best coach in the league, and I don't think many could really debate it. Like he's sort of flexed his muscles there. Some of the things the commentators were reeling off, out of the 8 blokes who caught passes for them, 3 of them were drafted. The other 5 were undrafted. So, it just shows what Sean Payton can do with a bunch of blokes who were overlooked by other teams. And I just thought the defense, I know that it's been pretty elite for quite a while now, but holding the Packers one of the best offenses to 3 points is pretty unheard of. So, yeah, I reckon huge win for the Saints in all aspects, really. And then I thought the Broncos played really well. Away from home, holding the Giants to 13 points isn't that big of a surprise because they have a good defense. But to me, I was most shocked by their offense to score 27 points. I thought that was pretty impressive. Their receiving core looked pretty sick. I know Jerry Jeudy went down injured, sadly, for Curtis, who had him in fantasy. But 6 blokes had 3 or more catches, and out of those 6, 4 have been in the league for less than 3 seasons. So the likes of Jeudy, KJ Hamler, and their 2 tight ends. So pretty exciting times that the Broncos obviously got a rookie running back as well. So if Teddy can just do a good enough job, give 7 out of 10s every week, I reckon they could be a dangerous team that will beat a lot of good teams this year. And also Von Miller, in his first game back from injury, had 2 sacks and 3 tackles for a loss. So he looks like he hasn't missed a beat. And then the Texans, final shout out, I said they'll win 1 game last year. And I'm still not ruling that prospect out because the Jags did exactly this last season. They won their first game of the year and then lost the next 15. But their offense to score 37 points, I was pretty impressed with that. Brandon Cooks, like he's a genuine top receiver. Tyrod Taylor's just a bit of a cheat code, really, with his agility. And I think their running back group of Phil Lindsay, Mark Ingram, and David Johnson's kind of OP. Like, they're sort of 3 blokes who have been cast aside, but when you put all 3 of them together, they're not bad at all. Ingram had like 23 carries or something. Lindsay had a touchdown. David Johnson had, I think, 3 catches. So them all in tandem could be a bit lethal. Into the losers, though, we'll swing it back to Kurt, mate. Who were the people that came out of this weekend unfavourably?
I've got 3. First one has to be the Atlanta Falcons. They just got thumped, and to be fair, they did look good on the first couple of drives, but other than that, Matt Ryan looked to play pretty poorly. Pitts didn't live up to the hype, and Ridley didn't have a standout game, especially on fantasy. Second one had to be the Titans. Obviously they got again thumped by the Cardinals, and was super impressive from the Cardinals. So I've got to give it to them. And last one, got to be the Packers. They also got thumped. To be fair, that was extremely surprising. What was most concerning, though, I think, was their inability to even get any offense going. It wasn't even a concern in regards to their defense. It was the fact that A-Rod, Jones, and Adams couldn't really even get anything going. I think they were limited to like 3 points or something. So it was a pretty stiff game for them and a bit of concern. But I would tip them to bounce back for sure. Tip especially the last 2, the Titans and the Packers, to really bounce back. They're both pretty stacked on offense. So those are the 3.
Yeah, the commentators were sort of whipping out all the excuses in the book for the Packers. Like, they played shit, there's no way around it, but I do think some of the excuses are fair. Like, apparently none of the starting offense played a snap in the preseason. And apparently where they were playing, it was like 35 degrees Celsius. So, and Green Bay's like a freezing place. So that was some of the excuses they were whipping out. Could be fair, could be shit, but yeah, surely they bounce back against the Lions and get the job done. Pilch, who are your losers, mate?
The entire NFC North whole division got rinsed by
That's true, actually.
by interdivision rivals. Green Bay got rinsed, Det got rinsed, Chi got rinsed, and
Fuck off.
Minnesota all got rinsed. So big loser there, and also gonna have to say Baltimore, because just I expected them to come out, as I said to you boys, and rip the Raiders, and they ended up getting ripped, and their O looked honestly no better than it did last season, which was quite surprising to me. So, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I've just remembered. Kurt, your rinsing of Kyle Pitts is fucking stiff as, mate. It's like 4 catches on debut as a tight end. Like, that's not even bad. I know he's picked 4.
When you draft him in the 3rd round in your fantasy league, mate, you need him to be producing a bit more than that.
Yeah, fair.
Poor draft pick by Atlanta as well, I reckon.
Oh, I thought you were going to say by porn star Jimmy. But
and porn star Jimmy.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Tight end, that's too high, but I know like Hawk and stuff went pretty high and they're decent. But yeah,
don't think that was their need though.
Yeah, that's actually very true. Yeah, it's not strange footy actually. Now that I think about it, you're right. But yeah, I had the Falcons. I just we knew they were going to be shit. But losing to a team that I've predicted to win 6 games by 26 points is pretty frightening. Like, what's going to happen when they, for example, play the Bucks this week? Washington, bit harsh because they were playing a good team in the Chargers, but just the injury to Fitzpatrick, I don't know if I had them in the playoffs. Had them there or thereabouts, but I think I had them around 10 wins. But I think this injury to Fitz could be out to up to 2 months. I think it has a real big impact on them. Like, I know this Taylor Heineke bloke led them to a win, I think, last year in one of his starts. But yeah, big risk. Could be anything, really. Could be absolutely dog shit. So yeah, I've just got a lot less belief in them now. I know their defense is still really good and they've still got some decent weapons and stuff like that. But for this offense to score more than 20 points a week, I think it'll be pretty hard with this quarterback for the next couple of months. So it'll be tough for them to win games. And then finally, as Pilch said, I've got the Ravens. Just reckon, I know it's only round 1, but I just think in a tight division like the AFC North, I think losses like this can end up being pretty costly. I had them pipping Pittsburgh and also, in fact, pipping them for a wild card spot. So a loss like this could, sort of flip that the other way around. And also, I just didn't think from the eyeball test, as they say, I didn't think, as Pilch said, I didn't think they looked good on either side of the ball. I know they've got a lot of injuries, and for example, like Jimmy Smith didn't play. I think he might play next week, but yeah, their defense looks a lot less scary at the moment. And yeah, as Pilch mentioned, the offense didn't improve like we were sort of expecting. Before we get into Curtis's playoff bracket predictions, me and Pilch did ours last week, so we thought we'd hear Curtis's this week. I just wanted to say some things that happened in week 1 of 2020, because there's some people coming out with some outrageous calls, whether it be fantasy or non-fantasy, and I think people just need to take a step back. So the Jags won in week 1 last year, went on to win 15 games. Cleveland lost by 32, went on to be in the playoffs. Tampa Bay lost as well, went on to win the Super Bowl. Matt Ryan threw 450 yards in week 1. So didn't really have that good of a season. Minnesota were within a touchdown of beating the Packers. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 140 rushing yards, and the Patriots actually won a game. So yeah, I know we've just made some calls in that segment before, but I think everyone just needs to take everything with a grain of salt early. It's a somewhat long season, and yeah. But if anyone wants to trade me Patrick Mahomes for Jameis Winston, I will accept it. But yeah, Curtis, the playoff prediction. Interested to hear this one, because I think we all have different thoughts on how the playoffs are going to look, but let it rip, Kurt.
Alrighty. AFC East, I've got the Bills. Pretty self-explanatory. AFC West, again, pretty self-explanatory. Got the Chiefs. AFC North, I've got the Browns. Again, as I said before, super impressed with how they played against the Chiefs. I think they're genuine hot chances here. I know some might disagree. AFC South, I've got the Colts. I'm not sure even what to think of that division. Obviously, Colts had a loss. I think Titans had a loss. So yeah, not really too sure what to think of that division. Then for the 3 wild cards, I've got the Dolphins. Tua to me didn't look unreal, but again, Cork made a good point to me in the DMs that the Patriots are a super D, so got to just take that one with a grain of salt. Then again, he did have some unreal throws, so I still got high expectations for them. Steelers, super impressive. Najee Harris, I think, will only get better. Yes, and then I've got the Titans, and I'm going to give a special mention to the Chargers. I think they actually might go right this year. New coaching staff, so hopefully they win those close games that they lost last year, and they might get a little sneaky chance into the playoffs. Because they are, to be fair, they're pretty stacked, especially in offense.
Yeah.
They've got Allen, they've got Williams, who's super quick, a super high draft pick, quite a while ago now though, and obviously they've got Eckler. And they really stacked their O-line this year as well. And now we'll get into the NFC. Unless you guys have any comments on that.
Yeah. Do you have the Ravens missing out?
I do.
That's spicy. I rate that though. I rate it. Yeah,
I was way too many injuries, and honestly, I was not impressed at all. With the way they played.
Yeah, they did play shit.
Watkins looks all right, but he's not a true wide receiver one. Let's be honest. Just pacey as hell. And then obviously Williams is their 4th string running back. And Lamar, obviously he's elite, but there was nothing new to see. And I feel people are going to start working out how to stop that offense eventually. So yeah, don't really have the highest expectations going for them this year. Bit controversial, but standard for me. All right, NFC East got the Cowboys. Pretty self. Oh, actually, yeah, got the Cowboys, but Washington could give them a run for their money. NFC West obviously got me 49ers. Don't see how they don't win that division, even though Pilch will go say that the Rams are going to win it. But let's be honest, if Jimmy G plays shit, they'll chuck in Trey Lance. If Trey Lance plays shit, they'll chuck in Jimmy G. So they're not losing that division. I'm sorry, mate. Let's be honest. NFC North, I've got the Packers, but again, bit of a stinker of a loss this week. But I don't see how they don't bounce back. And NFC South, obviously got the Buccaneers, who probably, to be fair, are the Super Bowl favourites for this year. And then for the 3 wildcards, got the Rams, Cardinals, and Saints. Saints were super impressive. Winston, super impressive. Ultra surprised they're going to get Michael Thomas back. So yeah, got high expectations for the Saints, to be fair. And I also want to give a special mention to the Seahawks, which means that all 4 of the NFC West teams could make it. That division is beyond stacked. They all looked super impressive in the first week, except for the 49ers in that second quarter and a half when the Lions made a comeback, but they probably just switched off. So let's be honest. So yeah, I think that this year we could actually see all 4 teams from one division potentially make the playoffs, which would be beyond scary and unreal and just unheard of. So yeah.
Yeah, that would be saucy as. I don't actually know if Russell Wilson's ever missed the playoffs since he's been in the league. So I think Kurt could be predicting a first there, which is pretty saucy. Wait, Kurt, thoughts on this take? I said last week, AFC South, worst division of the year. Do you back it, or do you think NFC East is still bars?
I think they're 2 worst, to be fair. AFC South, I do have expectations for the Colts, to be fair, but you're not wrong. Titans just look dog shit, absolute dog shit. And Julio Jones got ripped by his coach. So yeah, look, could be. I still think it's the NFC East, but NFC East is
Yeah.
definitely getting better. Like Cowboys, they're stacked on the offense. They've made their defense a bit better. They went hardcore at their D in the draft, so they got the likes of Parson early in the first round, who's a good pick. Um, and yeah, Washington obviously is Washington's really good. They're just probably a QB away from being a proper solidified playoff team, which is annoying for them. But I mean, it's a positive for the Cowboys and the rest of that NFC East division.
Yeah, absolutely fair call. I think we had quite a lot different, all three of us, so it'll be interesting to see who comes out on top. All right, just some quick awards for the week before we get into the fantasy section. I know Pilch probably has blue balls before it, but I'll start us off. I think we might have all done it a little bit differently. But first of all, my offensive player of the week, I've done one for each conference. NFC Player of the Week in terms of the offense, I've done Matthew Stafford versing a good defense in the Bears. Just reckon he put on a clinic. Also, maybe a little bit, of like a storyline thing to this award, but the way he just strolled in through 321 yards from 26 attempts, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, only sacked once. Thought it was a pretty spicy clinic, and he could have kept going. But obviously they sort of put him away in the last quarter and just let Hendo get the job done. So yeah, for me that was Stafford, and then AFC I've given it to Tyreek Hill, versing a pretty good secondary in Cleveland. To have 201 yards from scrimmage, I think was pretty sensational. First drive, he only had like one catch for them. They were sort of leaning on Kelsey a lot more. And then he sort of just took over from there, had 11 catches for the game, one touchdown. Yeah, and for me, like the Cleveland looked like they were going to win after the first quarter, but I think Tyreek Hill was a real reason why Kansas got over the line. Then I've given an Offensive Rookie of the Year week award. I've gone someone a bit more rogue here. Not one of the starting quarterbacks, not one of the starting running backs or anything. I've given it to Anthony Schwartz. Same game as Tyreek Hill playing for the Browns. Got a lot more snaps because of Odell Beckham's injury. Just some background to who this bloke is. Pick 91. When he was 16 years old, he ran 10, 15, 100 meters. Personal best of 10:09. So he's freaking rapid. Like he was actually a professional athlete before he went into American football. So borderline Olympic speed there. Based off the pro days, because there was no combine, he had a 40 dash time of 4:26, which was 0.03 faster than anyone else, faster than Henry Ruggs of last year. And that's actually the tied fourth fastest of all time. So he's just pure speed. But yeah, against the Chiefs team, it's pretty good. 3 receptions for 69 yards, 1 rush for 17 yards. All his plays were in the opening half as well when the game was absolutely neck and neck. They were just going back and forth, and he provided a lot of game breaking plays that, as I just mentioned, were pretty large chunks. So, yeah, look for him in Cleveland in the next couple games. Odell's probably going to be back this week, so his time on the field might decrease a little bit, but he looks pretty exciting. And then Defensive Player of the Year, we've probably all got of the week. I keep saying year, but we've probably all got the same bloke here. One of the all-time best defensive individual performances ever. Chandler Jones up against the Titans, destroyed Pro Bowl lineman Taylor Lewan. 2 forced fumbles, 5 sacks, 4 tackles for a loss. So essentially 9 sacks, you could argue. Didn't record a stat in the fourth term, and he played 75%, so he legit might have sat out the fourth quarter. I'm actually not sure, but yeah, that's just a nasty game from Chandler Jones. And I don't know the odds. I don't know if there is an odds market, but if there's a sacks leader odds market, you think it'd be about $1.80 now, because having 5 after the first week's a pretty decent head start from the great man. Pilch, head to you, mate. What have you got here?
AFC Player of the Week. I've gone with Pat Mahomes. Just the best performing quarterback in the NFL probably this week. got them over the line, led the comeback against the Browns. And then NFC, I've got Kyler Murray, same deal, just rinsed Tennessee, 5 touchdowns, just a beast. Offensive Rookie of the Week, hard to go past my boy Jamar Chase, 100 yards on debut against a tough Min D. They got up as well, and including a 50-yard touchdown.
Did he touchdown? Oh,
Yeah, 50-yard touchdown early in the game. And then Defensive Player of the Week, Chandler Jones, which is the most obvious decision, as you just mentioned.
Yeah, not even much of a debate. Yeah, Chase was my other guy, and then I was like, nah, Pilch will do Chase because he's in his fantasy team, so I went with Schwartzman. Diago. Curtis, what have you got here, mate?
All right. AFC Player of the Week, I went Carr. Huge performance, 435 yards, 34 of 56 attempts completed, had 2 touchdowns, and probably could have been 3 if not for the interception that literally just went through the receiver's hands. We're talking an absolute joke. And talking, the man is an underrated commodity. He is a weapon and has just been on a dog shit team for his entire life. Best receiver he's ever had, like Carr. So, it's Cooper. So we're talking, man needs some more respect. And Cook, you need to give it to him. NFC Player of the Week, got to be Winston. Man had five touchdowns. Did not have that turnover presence that he had at the Bucks. And yeah, I'm talking that's his second game that he's looked super impressive, super effective, super efficient. So I think there's a big season coming up for Winston. And I've said it before, I think he is a dark horse for the MVP. And yeah, Offensive Player of the Week. I mean, he probably wasn't an Offensive Player of the Week, but I'm just going to mention him. A, because he's in my fantasy team, and B, because just a super elite return following what was a season injury, and that man is Dak Prescott. Obviously, he came up against probably the best D in the league in the Bucks, and yeah, he really pushed them to the limit. Was throwing it everywhere, and yeah, was just looking elite as usual. And Defensive Player of the Week, obviously, as you guys have said, Chandler Jones with those 5 sacks. So yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, that Arizona defense is looking pretty nasty this year. Like I reckon JJ Watt will take. Well, now JJ Watt will be free, but I just think the name of JJ Watt like scares O linemen, and I reckon gets a bit more attention. And then Chandler Jones is free, and then get Butter Baker seeming in there on a couple of blitzes. It's all of a sudden pretty frightening. And Isaiah Simmons, who's sort of been slept on this year, I think. But yes, Jamar Chase. I feel like everyone's been disrespecting him recently. He is actually a freak. Like, as Pilch mentioned to us the other day, there was a reason why Jefferson was the number 2 behind him at LSU. So, yeah, pretty spicy from Jamar. I will be picking him up in fantasy this week. But time for our fantasy section. So what we're going to do, go in the 4 main positions, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. We've all brought a couple risers and fallers to the table, and we're just going to explain why we think they've risen or fallen in our rankings. But first of all, get a quick wrap-up of how everyone's weekend went. Pilch, manager of... I've actually forgotten your name, and it might be not feasible to say on the podcast, but Pilch, how did your fantasy weekend go, mate?
Thanks for asking, mate. Always love gloating about my fantasy team. As usual, top scored the league this week with 180 odd. Entire team balled out, including my bench. So it's looking very good. I know a lot of the league members, including yourself, dislike my team because I chat shit. But that's what you got to do to win,
I wouldn't
mate.
say I dislike your team. I dislike your manager.
Well, to managers league, mate. So the manager is the team.
I dislike your name, mate. Dislike your name.
Yeah,
Needs to
well,
be changed.
we're not
Yeah, I think it should be
we're not
changed.
saying it out loud. So,
Yeah, it's
but yeah,
sure, mate.
very happy with my team this week, mate.
Nah, great week from you in all fairness. The number one seed to win the premiership, and given he's been doing mocks since about March, probably expected, but nah, just take the piss.
Well, I told Cork Senior you did 3 mock drafts before the draft, and straight nerd behaviour was the response, mate. Nerd behaviour. It's disgusting
Well,
to see.
Apparently, Cork Senior is a bit of a nerd himself these days. So,
Yeah.
I haven't heard that.
by the way, it
both
wasn't
levels.
3, mate. It was about 300.
Yeah, Pilch is a nuffy, but we all are nuffy, so play on. And that's got him the number one seed, so fair play to him. We'll go over to Curtis, Pornstar Jimmy. How'd you go, mate?
Don't really want to talk about it, mate. As you can see, I get a bit emotional about it all, but, you know, it's a stiff loss. Like, we're talking, it's got me ranked 9th on projections for the year. Like, talking,
that's a
I'm worse
violation,
I'm worse than Quinn. It's a violation. Like,
Nah, but it
Wait,
doesn't
Quinn's up
factor
to
in
second
manager
now.
skill.
Quinn's up to second behind
Oh,
I
me.
don't know how Quinn's in second.
That's disgrace. It needs to somehow factor in manager ability, and then Quinnos would be 8th, and Curtis would be second.
Yeah, but
I'm
his team's good,
struggling to see how I'm 9th. Like, I've got Chubb, got Eckler. To be fair, I reckon it'll be my lowest score of the year, because no one actually genuinely bowled, except for Dak.
Yeah, you'll be
Except
fine.
for Dak.
You'll be fine, mate. Don't stress yourself.
But yeah, it was a stiff loss to lose to projection 10. That's the concern though. And I didn't just lose; I got absolutely bummed. I've chucked up 120 and he's chucked up 160, and I wanted to kill myself, but that's a whole different story. Take that back. Cut that out. Just been cancelled, boys. I'll pass it on to Gork.
I should say what format we play. So we play a bit of a different one. No defense, no kickers. We have a super flex. So yeah, it's a lot more straightforward. I prefer it anyway. I think it's a great job to the commissioner who is in this very podcast. But yeah, fair play. Kurt, you'll be right, mate. We've changed it from top 4 to top 6 playoffs, so you'll be sweet. You've just got to get.
Can we just talk about how the league's rigged as well? Because Pilch's commissioner gave himself first pick, gives himself the only veto power.
It's not true, mate.
Gives himself the only veto power, so he's the only one who can cancel trades.
Mate,
so when
the veto thing was necessary.
That's true.
That was necessary.
Did not give myself first pick though.
I told him to do the veto thing though, because how painful would it be if like 6 people had to vote? Like it would take hours to get through a trade.
Yeah, and then people could just do it on purpose.
Yeah, it should be us 3 because we're always active in the fantasy world.
Yeah, fair, but that's like straight.
Yeah,
up
but I'll consult like the more experienced members of the board each time a trade comes through.
Yeah, that's why I thought that was the general understanding. So good to hear that is right. But yeah, so this podcast isn't 6 hours because we could just chat shit all day here. We'll get into it. Quarterbacks, I'll start us off, boys. My quarterback rises. Before I get into this section, just a quick mention that obviously Fitz's injury, huge impact. I had him very high. I love the Fitz magic. Thankfully, wasn't allowed to pick him up basically because the guy was asleep who has him. So shout out to Pisa of college football fame. Fitzpatrick, obviously a faller. Therefore, Heineke, a riser. But let's be real. Probably not that fantasy relevant till we see him and if he balls out. But the guys, I actually had Wilson very low in my rankings. Like, I'm sort of disgraced of how low I had him. We're talking, I think I had him at 22. And he only had like 20 attempts or something. And he just still cooked. So, I just think he'll throw that many touchdowns. I think he's just like a lock for top 10. I don't think he'll be elite, but just with, as I mentioned, his scoring ability, they're not going to run many touchdowns in. I reckon, shit call from me. Jared Goffney, another riser. I'm sure most people would have him in the risers if it was like, 5 people long, but you guys might not have him because we only can pick a couple. But things that I enjoyed: 57 attempts. Pretty hard not to have bulk yardage when you're throwing it 57 times. He also had 5 red zone attempts, so suggesting that they favour the pass instead of the run in the red zone, which is always ideal to a fantasy quarterback's credentials. And QB Faller, I had this bloke at number 13, and Curtis won't like me saying this, but it's Carson Wentz. He had 3 red zone attempts, and their offense looked pretty average, I thought. Looks like it's going to be a run first offense, great O-line, good running backs. So I think Wentz might just be a little bit of maybe a system QB this year. When the run game doesn't work, they wheel him in, or if the game script suits. So yeah, I don't know. I still think he has upside, but I don't know, that worried me. Only 3 red zone attempts. But I'll pass it over to Curtis. Who are your QB risers and fallers, brother?
I'll keep it short. Riser, Winston, self-explanatory. Faller, Fitzpatrick, self-explanatory. Play on.
Yeah, I found that quarterback's hard, actually, so I respect the quick nature of it. Pilch, who have you got, brother?
Riser, Jalen Hurts. I actually had him high from the start, but the man absolutely balled and actually looked elite throwing as well. It looks like Devonta Smith and Riga look good as well, so I think he'll ball. And Faller, wouldn't buy into it too much, but I'd probably drop him a couple of places, and that is Aaron Rodgers. He's obviously going to bounce back, but I don't know. There was just a lot of talk about him not wanting to play at the Packers and all that throughout the off-season. So I'm just wondering whether the Packers might kind of capitulate a bit this season, but I guess we'll see. It wouldn't be jumping ship just yet.
Yeah, a topic that we talked about a lot last year is Rodgers a sexy rooster? So, Pilch, thoughts on his hair? Do you think? I think the hair is a disgrace. Like, I think it's lowered his rating like a lot. I don't know about you, but I don't think it's a good look.
I think it's almost as disgusting as Pilch's beard right now, but
so it's a good hair then, mate. But I just think it detracts from his Dilf look a bit. So
yeah,
therefore it lowers his.
Like, if you told me A-Rod had long hair, I'd be like, oh, he's going for like that cabin, rugged, sexy Dilf look. But I don't think he pulled it off, and he just looked like some old bloke. So it looks like some old bloke with like long hair, weirdly. Like,
he's got the grey streaks going through it as well. He just looks old. Looks old and homeless.
Yeah, not the play from A-Rod. So maybe he trims that up and they get back on the winning board, because I think that was a big factor in the loss. But yeah, Pilch, Jalen Hurts, how high do you reckon he can be? Do you reckon he legit has like top 5?
Upside.
Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty high on him as well. But
not.
Or what don't you like about him, Kurt?
Well, I just think that they played Atlanta and everyone's getting on the bandwagon, and we're going to come to the recollection that Atlanta is the worst defense in the NFL, and he's chucked up 27 points or something like that against an Atlanta D that has nothing going for it. An Atlanta team that really has nothing going for it, to be fair, because Matt Ryan stinks. So I think everyone's got on the bandwagon, everyone's high on him, and he's just going to sit in that 12 to 15 range like he was expected to be.
Yeah, I think I've got him around 9th. I don't think I'll be moving him up this week, but if he puts on a good show against the 49ers, who are significantly better defense than the Falcons, or maybe not, they conceded bloody touchdowns to Goff for days, but yeah, we'll see how he goes. But I don't know. I like Hurts. Love a bit of a dual threat QB. Winston, Kurt, are you going to be trading for him this week?
I was thinking about it, to be fair. If you... Well, you said you were getting rid of him for crumbs, mate. So, Jerry Jeudy, mate.
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. It legit backfires whenever you share any opinion, but it's boring if you don't.
Jerry Judy.
Jerry.
He's on the IR.
Yeah. But we've got an IR spot though. So
we do.
Could be a useful pickup.
The issue is I have two IRs in the first week.
Is Mostert an IR? Dead set.
Mostert's done for the year, confirmed.
I missed
this
that
morning.
I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they're like, "Oh, they probably just rested him because it was Detroit."
No, he's done. He's out. Yeah, for the year.
That's cool.
He chipped a cartilage in his knee.
Oh, so we all know who the wave number 1 is now, boys.
I already put him. Don't you worry about that, mate.
Mate, it's actually a bad week to do well. Like, I think I'm number 8 in the waivers. And
I didn't even bother putting.
I'm just thinking everyone will forget. To be honest, yeah, I don't know.
Well, you've already got Sermon, don't you, Pilch?
You got Sermon. I Sermon. Yeah.
But he didn't even have a
carry. He didn't play.
Shanahan said he wasn't in the top 3 running backs.
Yeah, but he has to be now, so he'll get a couple carries.
Yeah, just week. Whether his fantasy relevance.
Yeah, I've gone straight for Mitchell, but Locke, if you're watching this, if you go for him, mate, we're gonna have some issues. So,
what are you number 2?
I bet that he's not going for him, mate, because he doesn't check his team.
Yeah,
I'm 3, I believe. Okay. I think the 2 ahead of me are Quincy and Locke.
No, it's not.
Is it done on like margin or points scored?
Quinn 1. I think it might be.
I'm getting it up.
I don't know. This is shit.
It's Peasley. Sorry, he's dropping to me, boys.
All right, yeah, we're rolling through the running backs because I've just realised that, and no one listening or watching knows what we're talking about. The running backs who I think will rise. I've got. Not I think will rise. Who I've got rising. I've got Damo Harris. Wasn't that high on him last week. Had him, I think, mid-20s. But he had 23 carries, 3 red zone attempts. Obviously, Sony Michel's gone. James White doesn't really have any deal in the running game there. More just a catcher. And it looks like the backfield's completely his. And he showed glimpses last year, just maybe didn't have enough volume to be that relevant. Like, he was sort of just a 90 to 100 yard rusher every week and didn't have any catches. But this week he had 3 targets as well. So if he can start getting 1 touchdown a week, couple catches, all of a sudden he's getting 15, 16 a week, and he's an RB2. So I think he's a riser. I've got Pilcher's boy. Why have I just forgotten? DeAndre Swift. I forgot his first name for a second. I was going to call him Jermichael, but he had 11 because I was thinking of. Yeah, that's who I was thinking of from our last chat. He had 11 targets, which is just outrageous as a running back. As a lover of JD McKissick, I'm pretty much a lover of any running back who just plays as like a wide receiver. And if the game script keeps going as it was last week for Detroit, he's going to be used more as a pass catcher than a running back, and that's certainly not a bad thing for fantasy. Pair 10 to 15 carries with 8 to 12 targets. That's a pretty frightening combo with a massive floor. And then the other one, I've got another Detroit boy. Was low on him last week, but Jamal Williams had 9 targets, which is just, as I mentioned before, same thing goes. Pretty silly. My running back fallers, I've got Antonio Gibson. Don't talk shit, Kurt. Not in the mood. He only had one red zone touch, and I just think the Washington offense as a whole has taken a bit of a hit from Fitzy's injury. I just think their point scoring potential has decreased significantly. And as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, I don't see them scoring much more than 20 points a week until Fitzy comes back. So, yeah, Gibson, he'll get a lot of volume, but not necessarily the scores that you need. In that same conversation, JD McKissick drops for me. I had him pretty high. I had him on my bench, actually, and he whipped up less than 1. And I've got Pilcher's boy, not Pilcher's boy, Curtis's man. Austin Eckler had 0 targets. And people were saying maybe it's because he's injured or whatever. I don't see how getting a target is like, if someone was injured, you'd think they'd get targets, not carries, because carries are getting absolutely pumped. So Yeah, I don't know. That frightens me, mate. I know they looked good as a team, but maybe Herbert's going to cook too much to even look down at Eckler. That's what I think. The ESPN description said that the Chargers were just doing too well, and he was thrown too far to get down to Eckler. Those check downs. But if the Washington D line's not enough to get Herbert doing check downs, worried for you, brother. Kurt, what do you think about that? Who are your running back rises and falls?
Got a few rises. First one, gotta have to have Tyson Williams, just because of the injuries to all the Ravens RBs. So got to back him in for a reasonable year. Like I'm talking, could actually, find a way to people starting lineups. And then got a couple winners on Quincy's, Henderson and Mont. I both thought they looked pretty elite, and we'll be trying to trade for both of them. So yeah, I'm big on both of them as winners. And I've also got my man Chubb, because all I've heard from you boys is, he's like a 12, he's not that good. He's just got to produce, 15 every week, la-di-da-di-da. Well, not you, more Pilch,
Yeah, thanks, brother.
Pilch just abuses him. And let's be honest, he's a force to be reckoned with, lads. So I've got high trade value on him. So yeah, and then obviously as well Mitchell, because of the Mostert injury. Then some losers. I am kind of worried about Eckler as well, to be fair, but I feel like that might have just been a single week kind of game script injury, that kind of stuff. So bit of hope. I'm worried about Saquon. That O-line looks dog shit for New York. He looked like he was struggling, still obviously recovering from an injury, but for a man who's, universally considered a top 5 running back when healthy, it's a certainly concern that they've got such a weak offensive line, and I feel like it really might prohibit his productivity. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, definitely. Interested to see if I can get Eckler off your hands then, mate. But we'll do some business off air. Can't be airing our laundry, mate. Pilch, who have you got here?
RB rises, obviously the Niners bloke, Eli Mitchell. But the bloke I was probably most impressed with was Henderson. Just had like 80% of the carries. Michelle was pretty much a non-factor. And Bears run D, top of the range in the NFL, and he ended up balling in the second half. So he could be an absolute prospect. Too bad I'm getting him off Quincy, but that's a different story for another time. RB Fallers.
Are you?
Different story for another time. RB Fallers on Zeke. Quite worrying. That's all I'll say. Could be a repeat of last season. And Zach Moss was my other one. Something weird going on with Moss. He was a healthy scratch, and people are saying he may have broken like a intra-club like rule type thing, and so they didn't let him play. But yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on there. But Singletary got every single carry, so could be quite worrying for Zach Moss, who I actually liked coming in. And
yeah, I had that GM on my bench on about Friday, and then I read that on Sunday night, and I was like, "What the fuck?" But yeah, that actually would make sense, Pilch, if that was the reason, because he's definitely arguably the best running back there, definitely second best, if not first. But yeah, I definitely like the look of Tyson Williams. Reckon Pilch has got a good one there. I don't know if his ceiling's that high, because I don't think Baltimore will ever commit to just like one running back and let them rip and tear, but definitely could become an RB2 sort of situation. And yeah, Hendo and Montgomery both look sick. I was just looking at it. They're from the same draft. That draft, there's a few of them starting to sprout now. And yeah, they just, I don't think either of them went huge in fantasy, but their volume and their ability is pretty hectic. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how those boys go. I did trade away Hendo, but I love him anyway, so I'd be happy to see him rip and tear. Next up, we've got wide receivers. My risers are Cole Beasley, 13 targets, pretty self-explanatory there. John Brown's gone, and they signed Sanders, but he doesn't seem to be playing as big as a part. And Beasley was pretty reliable last year. Didn't have a huge ceiling because he just plays like slot and never really has huge yardage, but in a PPR league, very handy potential flex option, especially when the buys start rolling around. And then my other one's DJ Chark. I think he only had 3 catches, but 12 targets. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence has an interest in him, and he was I think he was around 20th in 2019 in PPR. So if he can get back to that sort of volume and maybe Jags improve a little bit from what they were in 2019, because I think Minshew was maybe the quarterback then, he could be a decent player. But yeah, I know you guys don't think he's any good because he can't catch the footy, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. And then my only faller is Calvin Ridley. He had 8 targets. He's like really the only man there. They have like Zacchaeus and Gage, but I think Zacchaeus didn't have a target. Gage had 2. The wide receivers as a unit only had 10 targets. That's my main concern. A lot of checkdowns, a lot of hit-ups to Hurst and Pitts. So yeah, I'm a little bit scared about Ridley. I think he's going to get a lot of attention from defenses because obviously, apart from Pitts, he's really the only frightening piece to defenses. So reckon he'll be getting 2-man looks pretty much every week. And he had no red zone attempts either. So the only thing in his favour is game script. Like Atlanta are going to be 70-0 down every week. And Matt Ryan's just going to throw the footy. But yeah, don't really like much about Atlanta at the moment. Bring back Todd Gurley, because why not? Pilch, who have you got rising and falling in the wide receivers?
I'd be more than happy to tell you, mate. Your man Deebo Samuel, someone that none of the experts, especially the ones that I follow, rated highly at all. They were all on Ayuk, and it was just the complete opposite story on the weekend. We'll see what happens for the rest of the season, but 180 yards is just ridiculous. So he looks insane. And then I got Corey Davis. Once again, looks like the clear Jets number 1 WR. Wilson and him had a good connection, had the most targets by far, touchdown, think over 100 yards too. Plays on the Jets, but should get some nice volume. And then Cooper Kupp, would not be surprised if this is a Metcalf Lockett type thing where he just alternates weeks with Woods. But Stafford and him just looked like they had an insane connection. Every play, even on Woods' touchdown, Stafford looked at Kupp first, wasn't open, then looked at Woods. Woods only had 70% of the snaps. Kupp had 100. And I've also heard that Kupp and Stafford have been having breakfast together each week, watching tape. So he could break out as the number 1 there at LAR, which is good for my fantasy side. And then fallers, as a result, I've got Woods there and also Ayuk, just from what I mentioned about Kupp and Samuel.
Yeah. No, that's definitely fair enough. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Ayuk. A bit weird. Like, I don't know what his snap count was, but yeah, there was injury concerns going into it, so I'm not that confident that Deebo's a weapon, but hopefully I'll lure some boys into some trades. Curtis, what do you got here, mate?
I'll keep it just a single one for the risers, and that's going to be AB for me. I personally thought he looked absolutely unreal against the Cowboys. He just looked like his old self. Obviously, there is a bit of a concern with the volume of targets, given they're a 3-headed monster with the addition of 2 pretty solid tight ends as well. So, and also two solid running backs. So there is a volume concern, but I mean, he just looked dominant, to be fair. And even when he was, kind of double teamed as well, or he was just in the thick of a zone, he still managed to make some pretty outrageous catches. So I feel like you might have a return to some 2018 kind of standards, but maybe not necessarily in terms of fantasy. And then a few followers. I had Kenny Golladay. Was a big one for me. He that New York offense just looks like an absolute joke, to be fair. Their offensive scheme just looks uninventive. And it just looks kind of predictable. I was watching a few YouTube vids from our professional commentators on the game, and they just said that they could kind of just call out what the play was even before it happened. So it looks like a bit of a concern. And then on another one on my team has to be Jerry Jeudy. Obviously, he was looking elite up until halfway through to the first third of that third quarter, and then obviously got injured. So I had really high expectations of Jerry, and unfortunately, his injury for the next 6 or so weeks is a concern and drops him down quite a bit.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Denver with the targets there. Does KJ Hamler become fantasy relevant, that sort of stuff? Or does Sutton go back to being a genuine WR1? But yeah, spicy stuff. We'll keep it going here because we have been here for a while. I don't want you boys to waste your days talking Boris, but tight end rises and falls. I've got my man who I drafted but traded away, Jared Cook, as my riser. Had him fairly high anyway, higher than the experts, but still will probably increase him again this week. He had 8 targets, 2 red zone targets as well. Herbert just going to be throwing the nut. Hunter Henry's gone. Donald Parham, or whatever his name is, didn't have many targets like being predicted. And Cook, it looks like he could be the main tall target for Herbert to hit. And then James O'Shaughnessy is another one. Not sure if he'll be fantasy relevant because you obviously, unless you're in a massive league, you have to be a tight end 10 or 15 to be cared about. But Trevor Lawrence threw to him 8 times, and they look like they could have a bit of a connection. Obviously, as Trevor gets better over the season, that could be one to watch. Tight end fallers, I've got Logan Thomas. He was my number 4 going into the week, and he had 3 targets, and obviously Fitzy going down hurts him. He's still a red zone threat, but as I keep mentioning, just not on I've gone off the Washington offense. So, if he's not going to get volume, then he's pretty irrelevant. Another one I don't like is Mark Andrews. Lamar only had 30 attempts. Mark Andrews had 0 red zone. One of the other tight ends even had a red zone target, and Andrews didn't. And Andrews only had 5 targets in general. The receiving core around him is strengthened, and I think he's been top 6 the last 2 years, but I reckon that might be too big of an ask this year with the likes of Hock, Fant, Gronkowski all probably going to improve this year. So, I think Mark Andrews' time as a bit of a weapon in fantasy could be over. Curtis, what do you reckon of the tight ends, mate?
I don't know whether I'm going to call him a riser, but I'd Waller in there just because I think last year he obviously was not inconsistent, but he had those few games where he, might have had a 7 and the next game had a 40. But I feel like this year there's going to be some serious consistency to him in terms of Kelsey kind of numbers where we're talking a minimum of 15 on fantasy, and then he can rise up to outrageous numbers like 40. So I feel like he's a serious prospect this year. In terms of fallers, Pitts, my man Pitts, an absolute disgrace. Just don't even want to talk about him. Right. I've had enough. I've had it. Actually, and another riser for me is Hawkinson. Sorry. I think it was. I don't know. I didn't expect that much this year from him, actually, given the way the Lions were looking. Because I personally think they're dog shit this year. and I just thought the whole offense is obviously going to go through Hawkinson, but I just didn't think they would even have much of an offense, period. But I mean, he's proved me wrong so far, so he's a riser in my books.
Yeah, definitely back that call. Who have you got any falls?
I had Pitts. I agree with Andrew's call as well. I think there's a concern there, and obviously, when they get Bateman back as well, that just takes it more volume away from him. And then I've also got, I think Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry are also concerned, just because obviously last year they were both considered probably two top 10 tight ends, maybe top 15 tight ends. And I think they're just going to steal targets away from each other. And they like, I don't see that much fantasy value in either of them.
Yeah, I'm with you. I had them really low on my rankings, actually. I think Johnny's like my 48th or something. But yeah, I think Fantasy Pros had them at like 7 or something. I was like,
yeah, they both had
I
them
was
like really
seriously
high,
down
like top
that.
15.
Yeah, I know they don't have much wide receiving talent, but like still, that's as you mentioned, they're just gonna take each other out. Pilch, who are you rocking here?
Risers, Cook was a great shout from you, and I've gone with Gronkowski. A lot of people had him lower this year, I think, just because of his age, but he balled out, had a huge snap count. And fallers, I've gone with Tonyan of the Packers, 1 catch for about 10 yards. Just looked pretty grim.
Yeah, not a fan of Tunyon. Like legit, he's just like one of those tight ends that you need a touchdown. Could be a bit like Johnny last year, where if you don't get a touchdown, you're getting less than 5. But yes, I actually rate the Gronk call. He'll be going up in my rankings. I don't think he had a preseason last year. Like he just rolled in. Was pretty unfit the first couple rounds, and yeah, I reckon he's fully firing now and could be a nasty proposition. But obviously, as an owner of a top 3 tight end, not that relevant for me. Into our week 2 preview, we're gonna say a sure bet of the week that we think's a lock. We're gonna have an upset of the week, and we're gonna point out some betting spreads, lines, handicaps, whatever you want to call it, that interest us. Sure bets, I'll start us off. Pretty dull, but Tampa Bay to beat the Falcons. Probably got the number 1 seed against the number 32 seed coming out of week 1. And it's also in Tampa. I think it might be, like, I don't reckon it'll be 50 points or anything outrageous because it's a divisional matchup. They're usually a lot closer. And the Falcons might play a bit more conservative this week after being embarrassed last week. But I think that's a lock. Curtis, what do you got here?
Yeah, I got the Bucks and Falcons. Just gonna be an absolute thumping, I think. I think the Packers over the Lions is a pretty sure thing as well. I feel like the Packers are gonna bounce back really hard. It's that was pretty embarrassing for is a pretty consistent and high achieving organization. So yeah, I really do expect a big performance from the Packers. And I've also got, I mean, Washington over the Giants, bit controversial, but I mean, I think the Giants are an absolute joke, to be fair. So, yeah, play on there.
Yeah, it will be tough for the Giants to score more than 2 touchdowns against that defense. Like Chase Young against that O-line. D Jones hopefully put some lube on. Pilch, who's your sure bet of the week, mate?
Yep, couldn't agree more with the Giants call there, but I've gone with like a value pick here, which will actually net you a bit of money if you bet on them. That's the Patriots to beat Nidge. That's the Jets for those playing at home. I think they're paying like $1.50 to beat the Jets, and I think it's an absolute guarantee. So yeah,
it's bold, definitely bold to say guarantee, but nah,
guarantee.
I'd say 98. Nah, won't go 90. I'd say 84 times out of 100, I'll back it. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good call. The Jets D looked good on the weekend, but yeah, I don't think they'll be able to score enough points. against that Patriots D. Upset of the week, as I mentioned to you boys off air, you disagree with me, but I'm actually shocked that they're outsiders. Dallas against the Chargers, paying $2.30, $2.32 actually, and I noticed that at the line their odds were like $2, so suggesting that it's getting even worse in terms of their odds. I just don't get it where this comes from. They just push the Super Bowl contenders right down to the last play, and I think their offense, like you have to be a pretty good defense to hold them under 30 points. I reckon Dallas win maybe 42-30 or something like that. I know the defense ain't great, and Justin Herbert probably going to rip them to shreds, but yeah, I just don't see why Dallas aren't putting up bulk points against the Chargers, considering they just put up 29 against the Buccaneers. So I was pretty shocked by that one. So obviously I also like that line. Pilch, who have you got as upset of the week?
I know I didn't necessarily agree with the odds or with your point of view on the odds, but I also went Dallas to beat Chargers. Just didn't see any of the other underdogs having as much as a chance as Dallas.
Yeah, fair enough. Curtis?
I'll give a couple make up for Pilch's shocking inventivity. Got the Colts v the Rams. Think the Colts can give the Rams a good hot run for their money. And I don't think the Rams are as good as Pilch thinks they are, being like the third hottest chance to win the Super Bowl in Pilch's books. But yeah, I think the Colts are a really solid team. And I think that if anyone can give them a run for the money, it can be them. Also got the Dolphins could give the Bills a run for their money as well. So that could be a massive upset. Maybe Tua bounces back with some more consistent performance in this particular game. And also had the Panthers v the Saints. I think the Panthers are a very solid team. I think Darnold will only get better as the year continues. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't hate any of those calls. I think Panthers might struggle against the Saints defense because they didn't do well against the Jets defense. But yeah, I don't hate that. I like the Miami call, actually. I think it's a sniff if the defense turns up. And then at the line, my favorite ones, I don't want to say too many, so I'll just say my interesting ones. I've got a couple where it's just like a big favorite, and I think they'll win by more than the line, like the Browns, Bucks, and Chiefs. So that's pretty boring. But my two interesting ones, I've got the Bengals. They're underdogs. The line's 3 against the Bears, and I'm not even kidding. For me, this game's a 50-50. I know the Bears looked alright against the Rams, but I don't think their defense looked that great, and I think the Bengals looked pretty good in both sides of the field against the Vikings, and I reckon they're a serious sniff here. And then my other one's the Rams. I actually completely disagree with Curtis. I reckon if the Seahawks can beat the Colts by 2 touchdowns, I think the Rams can beat them by 4 touchdowns, as I think the Rams are a better side than the Seahawks. So the line is 4, the Rams favourites. I reckon, yeah, I think that's pretty tight for my liking. If it was maybe 10, I'd steer clear, but anything less than that, I'm jumping on the Rams all day, up to the Stafford, baby. Pilch, what do you like here?
The footy team, -3 against the Giants. Lock that one away. Bills -3.5 to Miami. Like they could upset them, but I think in all likelihood they win by more than 3 points in a rebound game. And then I've got the Raiders to cover +5.5 against the Steelers.
Yeah, I actually thought that one was interesting because I don't know. Like I know the Steelers whenever the Bills was good, but they scored a blocked punt. It's like that's not sustainable. And the Bills' defense is good, not great. They only scored 2 touchdowns against them. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm still not that hot on the Steelers. Still got the missing playoffs, and I don't disagree with my thoughts before the season on them.
Their O sucks, so I don't think they're going to win by their games by like big margins. So I think 5.5 is quite generous.
Yeah, just could be a fair few turnovers. There were a couple against the Ravens, I think, and the Steelers is a whole nother beast on defense. But yeah, if they can stay disciplined on that side of things, I definitely think that's a shout. Curtis, what have you got here, mate?
I got Kansas City at 3.5. 3.5 to Bolt. I think it could be a bit of a blowout. To be fair, I don't think I'm actually genuinely concerned about Bolt. To be fair, I don't think they're going to make playoffs, as I said earlier. Got Cardinals at -4.5 versus Min. Cardinals looked unreal, so I think that could be a serious blowout. And then finally got me Niners at -3.5 versus the Eagles. As I said, I think the Eagles' performance was, I think it's just led people to overrate them a bit. Is Atlanta, I think, could be in the worst 5 to 6 teams in the entire NFL. So I think they might get a bit of a lesson taught to them by the Niners.
Yeah, I actually like all three of those from you there, mate. I just think I just think the lines are so small in NFL. Like anything where you're like 70% or more confident and the line's like less than 4, it's like I don't see why you wouldn't back it. But yeah,
I agree.
Pretty spicy calls. Great potty, boys. Been a fairly long one. I think we're up to an hour and like 12 minutes, but yeah, been huge. Loved both of your work today. We'll see if we return next week. We're sort of just playing the NFL episode by ear. So yeah, we'll suss and get back to you. But until then, enjoy week 2 of the NFL. Let us know your thoughts down below, and yeah, have a good week.